very, very brief, but, we haven't got a lot of time.
Je m'appelle Delphine Orviller.
My name is Delphine Orviller. I'm a woman and a rabbi, which also means that sometimes my days are a bit tough. For the longest time, I heard that women didn't have any place in religious leadership because it ran counter to tradition, or that women's place was somewhere else, perhaps in the home, or maybe they only had to fit in as women or mothers or housewives. There's so much has been said about women, but remember, all of this was to keep women out of power. There are as many feminists as there are kinds of feminists, and all of us, very different, four of us, have something that unites us very strongly. And the belief is that feminism has to keep changing the world, and it has to go cutting across all different sectors. And we've got to teach our little boys to grow up, to live and love without dominate, and teach rapists that they will cut their balls off. Sorry, did I say that? Sorry, they will be brought to justice, is what I meant to say.
Bon, alors, on va rassurer tout le monde.
Well, okay, everybody rest assured, we're not asking men to beg forgiveness for the crimes of other men. We do not even think that being a hetero male is a privilege of some kind. Honestly, no, that's not what we're saying. Rather, what we are saying is that patriarchy is a scourge which locks us all into cubbyholes about what is virile, what is feminine. And feminism enables us to open up those cubbyholes, to break the chains and get away from gender assignation. In fact, feminism enables us to explore what is feminine and masculine within each and every one of us without having to follow some model or imitate anyone.
Nous ne nous battons pas.
We are not struggling so as to be seen as women, as victims, or as different, to be somehow treated as if we were fragile little dolls. Patriarchy is already doing that. No, what we're fighting for is to be able to dare to do things, to dare to dream without being coerced or pushed into getting breasts put on, changing our vaginas or hair. No, we should be free. Our bodies should be free to live with our bodies, or to change the sex that we were born with, to work and take a break out of work to raise children, and that women and men have the same rights without being judged. Feminism is a promise of freedom. It's a humanism. It's a universalism.
Et l'universalisme?
And universalism? I think you can actually applaud universalism, can't you? Can't you applaud that?
L'universalisme?
Universalism doesn't mean that everybody exacts in exactly the same way at the same time. It doesn't mean that all of us are clones of one another. No, it's about dreaming of a world in which we can be what we want to be, regardless of sex, gender, origin, background, religion. And it's not, as we sometimes hear, that we are refusing to name discriminations and obstacles. The opposite is true, I would say. Au contraire, we have to look at them squarely in the face and call them out. Patriarchal traditions, the exotic respect of cultures, and propaganda. And why not those who are trying to defend secularism, or those who fight for equality for women and girls in the classroom. Toxic, virile nationalism, fundamentalism, all of these are colluding to form barriers around our bodies and our lives.
Le féminisme, en fait, n'a pas...
Feminism doesn't have to throw in the towel because it's scared of causing offense to any minority culture or religion. religion. Because remember that cultures and religions aren't actually speaking off their own bat. Sometimes they are used by the status quo. So let us not give them the chance to dupe us. Inclusions. Today's the 30th of June, and that's actually the anniversary in which we lost Simone Weil. Remember that sexism has no color, has no religion. It's everywhere. So let us fight it everywhere. Let us do it with strength, unabashedly, but above all, let's fight it together.
Merci. Alors,
thank you.
Chargé d'annoncer la suite du programme.
I was asked to announce the rest of the program, so before giving the floor to President Macron for his conclusion. No, that's not true. No, okay, I'm going. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Non, parce que on m'avait donné.
Thank you, Sophia. I was given a few names to mention. Oh, Madam Moreno, you will let me do my thing. So thank you, ladies. Thank you. Thank you, all four of you.
Alors, je pense que vous l'avez compris.
So I can imagine you guessed that this brings us to the last panel.
Et nous allons maintenant.
And right now, we are going to talk in the last panel about an issue that is essential in the feminist strategy of France and of other countries that have committed to the Forum Generation Equality, and that issue is the defense and defenders of rights. I would like to invent four personalities to come up here and to tell us more about their commitment to the topic. I would like to mention Madam Naher Razul, Mr. Darren Walker, Ms. Dahawi, and Mrs. Mayada Adil.
Applaudissez-les, encouragez-les.
I think you can give them a hand.
Madame Nahed Gazoul, nous allons commencer.
Madam Naher Razul, you are a Syrian activist, a staunch defender of human rights and democratic rights, and you have worked for the rights of young girls. You have the floor.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, Your Excellencies, world leaders and presidents, distinguished guests, great audience. I am really great. I have the great honor to be here in this historical moment. The moment that will lift me up to be able to lift other vulnerable women and girls in my cycle so we can continue living. My story is a bit different from your stories. I wish I could have the privilege to sit back, to talk like you about sustainable projects that could empower women and girls in my country. Let me introduce myself. My name is Nahed Gazoul. I'm a Syrian academic, activist, and a human rights defender. I come from Homs city in the middle of Syria and worked at Aleppo University to the end of 2011. I graduated and got my PhD from the UK, and I am a member of the civil society of the UN Special Envoy to Syria. As women representation in the political process is still very shy, although we represent more than half of the Syrian population. When the Syrian crisis started in 2011, everything was falling apart. The whole world have heard of our story, the story of a war, and maybe it is the worst humanitarian crisis since the Second World War. At that time, everything was falling apart around us. We were denied the freedom of expression, needless to speak about academic freedom. By the end of that year, I was invited by the government to attend a conference at Aleppo University to say that, or to confirm that it is an international conspiracy against what's happening in the country. But I spoke against what was expected, and I mentioned that, when peaceful demonstrators are faced with power and weapon, when the blood is streaming in the streets, peace will not be restored ever. At that moment, I was held accountable, I was wanted. I had to flee Syria urgently to Jordan with my husband and 2 children. The 10 years of my life in Jordan were not easy, not paved with roses, let me tell you. I worked day and night. I managed to get an academic post at a Jordanian university. And because I'm Syrian, I was not very much welcomed or allowed to have my own NGO or association through which I could formally support other Syrians. But this didn't kneel my work down. I had to work day and night to volunteer with every possible NGO organization to pass the voice of voiceless refugees in Jordan about the most current and hot issues at that time. I advocated for the rights of hundreds of Syrian women whose role has changed dramatically from being housewives into becoming breadwinners. Needless to speak about 500,000 Syrian widows in Syria fighting for bread for their children. Needless to speak about the detainees women who are facing appalling and living in appalling conditions. I was advocating for the rights of little girls to prevent child marriage and minor marriages, to allow those girls to go to school to get education. Because when the family had the privilege of choice, they will choose the boy rather than the girl, because it will be the family leader and the family bride. I also advocated for the rights of the war-injured people who didn't find anybody to help them even in finding their daily diapers or medication or receiving physiotherapy. And also, I fought for the education of our young generation out of the belief that if you give them a pencil, you prevent them from carrying a bullet or a weapon. You prevent them from being a target for leading and fanatic groups. But unfortunately, the efforts in that concern were very shy. I also was an advocacy consultant for the Syrian American Medical Society, so we advocated for the rights of civilians in besieged area inside Syria, in having food, humanitarian corridors, medication, and we reported the continuous systematic targeting of medical facilities. All these actions have been taken against me, and I was again wanted by the Syrian regime. In Jordan, please, we waited a lot. So just to conclude, just 2 minutes, yeah. Actually, in the mid of all this, I was picked up by POSE, the program that provided me with a lifeline when I lost my academic job in Jordan in 2019. I would like, from this stand, to thank both for providing with this opportunity, to thank Nanterre University and Medical Research Center, to thank the French government, which provided me with the visa when it was very hard for people to get visa, which I hope it will be granted for my children to be able to join me. I believe that POSE is an emergency program that tries to help academics and scholars at risk, but the very limited fund they get make it impossible for people like me to continue. The cycle will be very short and again will be lost. What's wrong have I done? Nothing. I just defended the rights of voiceless people. And for that, I lost my job. If you ask me, what do you expect to be in the future? What do you think tomorrow will be? Allow me to say, sir, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know. The future is very bleak for me. I have no future. If it is not for people like you, for world leaders who would put their fund in the right place, not to fuel wars, but to fuel education, to fuel human rights defenders, to fuel people like me, to be able to make it to life and to lift other vulnerable people will not be able to make it. Please invest in education, because you invest in the future of the whole generation, and you will make a hope for them. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Gazoul. Je vais vous donner la parole, Monsieur Darren Walker.
I'm now going to give the floor to Mr. Darren Walker, the president of the Ford Foundation.
Powerful message to us all. I am the president of the Ford Foundation, and I want to thank President Macron and the hosts. I speak on behalf of my colleagues at the Ford Foundation to announce our commitment, which is informed by our history and by consultation. I'll briefly say on our history, we at large foundations often talk about all the things we are proud of and the difference we make in the world. What we don't talk about are our failures. And there is an area that we have failed, I believe, that we hope today to begin to address. And that is the historic rhetoric around women and girls and the reality of what and how and where we have funded. We know that for many, many years, philanthropy has made the case for women and girls. What philanthropy has not done is to actually fund grassroots, women and girls-led organizations in the Global South. We have not done that robustly. We have not done that genuinely, and we've not done that effectively. We hope that at the Ford Foundation, we begin to actually do that. And so I'm pleased today to announce that we are committing $420 million to 5 of the action coalitions. And they include gender-based violence, economic justice, tech and innovation, bodily autonomy, and SRHR, feminist movements, and leadership. So we're taking a holistic, intersectional approach because that is the way women and girls live their lives. They don't their lives in our siloed foundation program budgets and program lines. They actually live complex, complicated, intersectional lives, and our grant making and work needs to reflect that. We are centering women's rights, girl-led feminist organizations at the heart of our response. And I'll give you a couple of examples of what I mean that manifest this. One of the things I'm most proud of is our investment in the Black Feminist Fund, which seeks to fund grassroots Black feminists to shift the dynamics around development and the discourse around women and girls, putting at the center the challenges, the aspirations of Black women and girls. We are also investing in disability rights, another area we have ignored. Funding organizations like Women Enabled, who are working to ensure that women and girls and with disabilities have the resources to reframe the conversation. And of course, we're working with government because